Okay, when we wait for the presentation to come up, a brief introduction about myself and my organization. I represent Sandvik Coromant. For people who haven't heard about Sandvik Coromant, Sal, thank you for introducing our organization. But it's a global leader in cutting tools and inserts, metal cutting tools and inserts for machining. We are leader in the space. Have been here for about 75 years. And we are probably the front runners in digital when it comes to taking out digital offers in the cutting industry. So when it comes to tools and machining, we are probably the first ones to have introduced in the market quite a few intelligent tools and softwares to support these intelligent tools into the market now. So that's very briefly, and we are part of the Sandvik Group. The Sandvik Group has quite a few other businesses in the space of mining, rock technologies, etc. And I'm part of Sandvik Coromant, which is part of the Sandvik Machining Solutions. So that's briefly about Sandvik Coromant. Myself, I'm responsible for digital machining, as we call it in Sandvik Coromant. And this is the organization me and my team are responsible to bring out. Thank you. I think there we are. Uh, Me and my department are essentially responsible for bringing out all the digital offers from a Sandvik Coromant perspective to our customers, and we brand these products as Coro Plus. So all our products are Coro products, and when we have intelligence into them, we call it as Coro Plus. That's our digital machining suite of products. So I'll stop at that. That's a brief introduction about me and my organization. Now, getting into what I'm here for, talking about closed loop manufacturing. Now, just to check here, how many of you have heard of Sandvik Coromant, and how many of you who are repeat here have heard what we spoke about last year when it comes to digital and what we are doing in digital? Good. Okay. So we've been here on this stage for a couple of years now. And like any other organization, and what we've probably all heard in the last 2 days, we started off our journey driving digital through technology, right? It was all about technologies. And, hey, it's all about connectivity. It's about building platforms. It was about what kind of protocols do we need to use essentially to extract data? What kind of an analytics platform should we bring in? So we started off our journey, not unlike a lot of our peers and our competitors and our friends in the industry, driving digital through technology. And till last year, if you were here, you would have actually seen us talk about our technology expertise and the kind of things that we had done in terms of creating a horizontal framework and edge kind of a gateway in terms of being able to support what we talk about in digital. This year, as I speak now, I want to kind of tilt this and take a top-down approach where I want to really talk about the business element of what we have tried to do and how we are aligning the technology that we've been talking about for the last 4 years into this business outlook and how that is delivering success for us. Yep. So what are the trends that are kind of influencing not just our industry, but discrete manufacturing across globally? One is increased information demand. I won't really get into what I really mean by information demand. We've been just talking about data and information to some extent, more about just data, not about the context of the data and the information that we can get out of the data in the last 2 days. But there's a vast demand and there's a growing demand on information from all the data that we collect. That's one of the biggest trends influencing discrete manufacturing. The next one is the growing customer skill gap. Till, uh, till about 3-4 years, or even now, we could actually count on the experience that we had within our own manufacturing production units to actually do what we wanted to do. But that's a graying population, if I can call it. And the new kind of a generation which is coming in, we are really talking about a generation which doesn't want to get into the shop floors. It's a generation which wants the speed of the instantaneous way that Twitter works, the kind of experience that you get from Facebook or your iPhone, and this is the generation which is essentially going to kind of inherit the industry that we have, and the core knowledge and the experience that we used to talk about in our industry, it's probably something that's kind of waning off, and we need to kind of see how do we manage the skill gap between what we had and what we expect to have in the coming years, and the expectations from the skills that are going to come in the next few years. Manufacturing industry digitalization, again, it's it's a core norm. It's not about whether we want to do it. It's kind of become a 360 degree, right? It's our customers who are demanding essentially the digitalization of the way we do things. And it's their customers who are demanding, and it's the consumers who are demanding it from their customers. So it's kind of become a 360 degree now, and it's become a norm, and we need to get into that. And that's a reality, and that's a trend, especially for discrete manufacturing industry. Tooling decisions are happening more in the design and planning phase rather than in the core cycles of machining as it used to happen traditionally, right? So it's all about how do we create this 360 degree all the way from design into operations planning into machining and create this loop. And last but not the least, it's about sustainability. Nothing is about just manufacturing. It's about how do we sustainably manufacture what we are manufacturing. And these are the trends that are kind of forcing us to change the way we do things. Having said that, the key focus of our industry, let me quickly open up all of these. It's about reducing waste. It's about the skills gap, as I talked about. It's about automation. It's about cost and quality control. And this is essentially driving the way we do business and essentially the kind of offers that we want to kind of bring out to the market, right? A key thing also to kind of note here is the value chain at the bottom, right? You see design, this is a value chain that all of us are accustomed to. It's design, it's process planning, it's operations planning, it's logistics, it's machining, it's verification. And we have been kind of looking at all the different aspects across all of these different aspects of the value chain. Now, traditionally, we've always been working on each of these silos and trying to address problems in a kind of a silo across each of these areas. Today's, as Sal was kind of indicating in his presentation, the need today is more about creating a 360-degree loop or a closed chain across all of this so that we can cross-pollinate the value from each of these phases within the value chain onto the other phases. And that's key, and that's what is essentially defining how we do things. The statistics on why, especially on the waste. Now, this is based on an internal study that we did with a sample of our customers globally. When we think about how the waste can be calculated across the different aspects of the value chain, you'll progressively see when we start from the design phase of machining a product all the way down to actually executing this, we see that the productivity has gone, or the wastage in this entire process is almost about 90%. And what we leverage is just about 10% of what we started off in the design phase. And there are different factors across your definition, across your process definition, across your execution of the machining, which contribute towards these wastages. And true efficiency, when we talk about a digital transformation, is about how do we address these efficiency challenges that we have across the value chain and be able to lift that up from 10 to something more on that index. So when it comes to the value chain, we package these into these four broad areas, right? It's about design and planning, which has design, process planning, operations planning. It's about production logistics, which is about preparation. It's about machining, it's about verification. Just to repeat what I said, the key success in digital is essentially going to be on how we pollinate or how we mash up the value across all of these four big pillars that you see here. It's not about creating solutions which address each of these spaces independently. And that takes us to a view which kind of makes it a 360-degree view. So it's not about a horizontal value chain. It's about a circular value chain where you're coming from process planning and efficiency into operations planning, programming efficiency, tool and cost management, predictive maintenance, processing. So everything that you see on the right corner is all about design and planning. Everything that you see in the left bottom out here is about machining, and then you have the verification there. So how do we make this a 360-degree loop? And then bring in all the right kind of enablers in terms of being able to kind of bring all this together. And that's where the technology comes in. And my colleagues here will talk about that. So today it's all about resource intense manual work. Tomorrow it's all about data-driven insights and how do we drive this. And again, as I said, this is just not about thoughts. It's not about what we want to do. It's about the maturity that we have gone through in terms of how we do it. And today we are at a stage of actually executing on our plan on how we essentially do all of this. But having done that, what we have also realized, again, something that we have seen in some of the presentations earlier in the other forums, it's not about taking a big bang approach out there and saying, hey, I want to be that big transformation. And I don't want to kind of create a big transformation day one. It's about how do we see this value coming in incrementally. It's about going in from a very descriptive way of looking at things into more adaptive way of looking at things, into a more autonomous way of looking at things. And each of them translating into an incremental value that creates for the business. It's about visualizing, being able to take decisions into essentially insights which predictively tell us what we can do, into self-learning and self-running systems which can actually do the thinking themselves and doing it. If I start thinking about having something in autonomous on day one, I would have already failed. It's about kind of taking that journey towards what we want to do, but starting somewhere, and that somewhere is bottom out there. So having said that, it's all about moving from a vertically integrated into a horizontal kind of an ecosystem approach. Very easy to say that we kind of bring a 360-degree loop. It's about bringing a lot of these different things together, but this doesn't happen magically. There are different ways you need to kind of reinvent your organization in terms of being able to do that. All the way from competency and skills. We're not really talking about skills today in the organization which are specific to specific areas. I cannot have a developer or a CNC expert who's just thinking CNC. I cannot have a sales guy out there in the field who's essentially just trying to sell a product. We need to have a sales guy who is essentially thinking about business values, who is able to talk efficiency, productivity. We need to have a developer who is essentially sitting somewhere 3,000 miles away doing something, but relating back to that efficiency and productivity that the sales guy is essentially selling to the customers. So you're really talking about completely different kind of competencies and skills, very different from what we have really been in our industry traditionally for years together. Ways of working across everything, ways of working in terms of how we develop and deliver things. It's not about being an organization which comes up with products as 5-year releases or 3-year releases. It's about being able to quickly come up with new releases and new products into the market, and which essentially translates into how you run your own development processes and your back-end processes within the organization. How can you be agile? How can you be flexible? How is it that you can adapt to the changing needs of the market? So you need to kind of reinvent the way you have your own organization and your structure. Last but not the least, the ways of working is also about the kind of backend systems that you have. Traditionally, if I take our industry, tools and inserts industry, we have our own very strong PLM systems, etc. out there. We have very good order to delivery management systems out there. Would they be able to cater to the kind of needs that we have in the digital world? No. Do the processes that we have essentially cater to the kind of needs of electronics and certifications and all the complexities which come with digital? No. So we're really talking about very different technologies, very different ways of working with the backend systems and the processes that we have within the organization. It's just not enough to say, hey, I have a great technology and I have a great offer which I'm going to start selling. The day you start seeing 1,000 orders hit you, your backend processes start failing, because you haven't really adapted your backend systems for digital within your kind of an ecosystem. So it requires very different ways of working. Last but not the least, business models. Again, traditionally, industry like ours, have been industries which work on 95-5 model, where 95% we own what we build, and it's our own product, and 5% is all about partnership. Digital is an area where the equations are completely kind of inverted. We really talk about 60-40, where 60% is about partnership and 40% is something that you build and you own, right? 60-40, 70-30, there are kind of parallels around that. So the business models are essentially very different. The way you do things, the channels are different, the way you do business is different, the way you approach your customers is different. You need to kind of reinvent in terms of the businesses that you do, if you have to be having a sustainable digital business. So it's quite a few things which come together. It's about how you think in terms of how you want to create your digital transformation. It's not a linear process anymore. It's about a circular way of doing things. It's about mashing up of the values across the value chain. It's about how do you create an organization which supports this in the ways of working, and the competencies and the skills and the business models that you essentially create. And last but not the least, which I am not having a slide on, but is to have this common technology enabler, which kind of helps you realize what we are really talking about. Agility, quick to be in the market, mashups between all of these different areas that we talk about in the manufacturing chain. But last but not the least, it's about bringing all of these order to delivery and management capabilities in so that you can be quick to the market and flexible. So that's what I had in mind. I think we take the questions
Yeah, we'll
at the
take
end.
questions at the end, unless there's any specific questions now.
Sure. Thank you.